African National Congress. Minister Sisulu, you're welcome, and thanks for making the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
Minister, you have, depending on how you look at it, the fortune or misfortune of being born to parents that were involved in the struggle against apartheid and colonialism. Your involvement in the struggle was both deeply personal in as much as it was political. How did that shape your outlook in life and the worldview?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't ready for that one. It's a difficult one to respond to just off the cuff because it is deeply personal. I found my way into my own liberation by joining the liberation struggle because I believe that until I am myself ready to deal with the issues that confronted all of us, then I would not be part and parcel of the big march that had been started by the ANC to liberate South Africans. So I joined the ANC, was arrested, and thereafter left the country, went to train in the then Soviet Union, and came back and worked in the underground. And so is my story. So I felt personally fulfilled in preparing myself to be a vital part of the change that we wanted. And I wanted to be counted not as somebody's child, but within my own experience and my own contribution. And I feel very strongly about that. I sometimes feel very resentful when I'm called somebody's child, because my own contribution is important to me. I gave my life to the ANC at a very early age. I suffered all my life for the ANC. And when it suits certain commentators, we are regarded as ANC royalty.
I think that's very important, and I hope that you will also. And one of the things that we don't do as Black people, we don't write our stories. A white person gets stopped on the roadblock, and there's a book. Black people spend time in exile, in jail, and etc. And there's no book. I hope you would try to do us the favor in this country favor by putting a book together on that. The ANC historical mission was very clear cut during the years of struggle. How has that changed since the ANC got into government? And if it has not changed, what is still missing?
Well, you know, the terrain that you operate on determines also the outcome. All along, the ANC was operating as a liberation movement. All along, the ANC had a great deal of support around the world. And by the time we became an independent country with our own government, most of the support was around policy issues, because it was also important for us that we establish our own support systems in an environment that wasn't quite the best there was. We inherited a government whose debt was overwhelming, precisely because our campaigns to stop any support for South Africa or any trade with South Africa had been so successful. So we came into government and tried to find out what needed to be done. And we were fortunate in that we had Madiba, and they had the vision to drive what needed to be done. And the difference between us as a liberation movement and us as a government was that we needed to have the skills to run government. We had had the skills to liberate the country in abundance. We needed to build up the core of people who would run the country. So for the first 2 years, we spent time preparing people to govern. We had a document that we put out that was called Ready to Govern, which was meant to prepare us to deal with the issues that would be required in a new government. And now we are here. When we had the 2017 charter resolutions, we did indeed want to make sure that we can bring back the spirit of the Freedom Charter We had spent a lot of time trying to get our grip onto governance, but we were not able to balance the two of them, having the political support that we needed and the political impetus that we needed, as well as trying to govern. So in 2017, we had the resolution which sought to bring the, political ethos of the ANC back into governance and into our structures at the policy conference. And we're still hoping that we are on track. But of course, we do have changes in personnel, we have changes in leadership, we have changes in many other ways. But when we put together resolutions, we are almost optimistic that this is what we need to do. So most of our resolutions are forward-looking as opposed to backward-looking, and very, very inflamed with the fervor to do better. But we always live up to them because they are larger mostly than what we are able to achieve at any one point. They are futuristic.
On that score, you are the longest serving chair of the Social Transformation Committee of the ANC. What does that entail? And if you were to be asked, what are the three critical issues that you'll say you have brought as chair of that committee?
Well, no, I think I'm probably the longest serving chair of the security cluster. I only shifted into the social aspect when I became Minister of, I think,
housing, human settlement,
housing, all of those things that have social impact. And how did we perform?
Well, let's start first with the one, because you were in intelligence, and as the chair of the security cluster, what was the two critical issues that you can top of mind remember that
about
you had when
intelligence?
You were intelligence and defense.
Oh, those were the golden days of this government. I thoroughly enjoyed myself in them. And you talk of writing books. I am hoping to write a book on our exploits. I keep telling people, and they don't believe it, that on one occasion I was we led a team to stop the overthrow of a Central African government, where a certain Englishman called Manning, together with Margaret Thatcher's son, had planned this and many other exploits. We were at the best we could ever have been. I'm very proud of the work that we have done in intelligence. I then proceeded to go on to defense, and we tried to make defense a very fashionable place to be. I came up with an idea which was shot down, but I need to say it because I think that it is shot down from an emotional point of view rather than a practical point of view. My idea was that we should try and get as many young people into the army as they prepare to go into university, because the army has the capacity to mold anybody into the best they can be. It provides them with the necessary discipline. It provides them with the necessary incentive to make the best of their lives. It's a very good institution. However, historically, the army is associated with something else, which we don't want in our lives. But in a different environment, I would say that it is a good idea that every school leaver should go through the army.
Yeah, you were very passionate to move quickly on that one. When you were in your public service, it was something where you put in legislation.
Yes.
And would you just take us through that? Because I do remember that was one of your passions, moving from defense also to public service. And
Well, with public service, we had to streamline and make sure that the level of professionalism in our government is that which would serve a modern day government in a modern day society. So we needed to professionalize our people who were in government. We needed to make sure that they were ethical in their behavior. We needed to ensure that we cut back on corruption. Corruption was a big issue at that particular time. a big issue that I found I didn't get support in. It took me a whole year to put together legislation, which is called the PEM Bill, which is the Public Administration and Management Act. And I got very little support even from my colleagues. It was the toughest 2 years of my life, trying to say this is the bedrock of what will take us into the future. We need a professional service. We need people who are accountable. We need institutions that work. We need a clean government. And we put together a section, a chapter that dealt with corruption, and nobody supported it. Today, we look back, and I believe those people who have served with me would be looking back and thinking, if only we had adopted it at that particular time, we would be in a better place in curbing corruption in government.
Yeah. Then, thank you for taking us through that. And as I said, there's a lot that could be put on paper about the challenges that you face as a minister and also as a cadre of the ANC. Your colleague and many others have reacted strongly against this notion of 9 wasted years. Yes. And they've actually felt that those who were propounding it were hypocritical because they were part of the so-called wasted years. How do you respond to that? And because you've been in government, and during that period, there's an impression that not much was achieved. But I would like to hear your take on that. At least I know that Gwede Montashe dismissed it, and so did Dr. Braden's Monday immediately when it was surfaced. But Dr. Mkhize has also repeated that, but his language was much more violent in reaction. But I would like us to deal with that because it was a dominant narrative that we had to deal with in the last few years.
Yes, you know, it is a characteristic of human beings to try and tarnish the image of the people that they take over from in order that they can climb on a pedestal of I've come to clean up or come to sort things out. We had 10 years of Comrade Thabo, and Comrade Thabo is an Africanist, thorough in his understanding of what needs to be done in government. He put in place all of those aspects of government that needed to be in place. He was followed by Comrade Zuma. I've lost you.
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. He was followed by Comrade Zuma. Now, Comrade Zuma's, the difference between Comrade Thabo and Comrade Zuma is that Comrade Zuma has a great deal of humanity in him. He brought into government those aspects that touch people's lives. And I speak about the area that I worked on when I was working with him. Today, we have a department called the Military Veterans Department, which would not have existed had Comrade Zuma not decided that that was going to be the way in which we look after our soldiers. And I could go on about some of the things that were done in that particular time. I don't know in what way these years were wasted. This is something that is always used by politicians who are trying to climb on other politicians to tarnish the image of those that would make it better for them to stand on a pedestal and say, I'm going to clean up whatever and I'm going to do better. Though the years that Comrade Zuma served were very fruitful years. They built on what Comrade Thabo had put in place, and I was there right through. The phantom of 9 wasted years is those people who are trying to remove any vestige of what they have found to create an impression that they have done better or will do better. There has not been anything that has been done better than what we found. We gradually grew as a government, we gradually grew as a society based on every step that we took. So that phantom is absolute rubbish, but it was thrown out because it served a particular purpose. It was thrown out during the Zondo Commission. And I think that that kind of self-affliction is very symptomatic only of Black people.
Yeah.
You will not find it in any other country. Blacks are very good at stepping on other people. Now, that might be too generalistic, but I think that we do have a problem of not acknowledging other people's work sufficiently.
Yeah,
both
Minister, I think you've expressed your views strongly on that. And let me move on something that you said.
Yes.
And I don't think you are alone in that. You're on record to indicate that the current president's rise to the ANC presidency in 2017 was a result of a combination of money, manipulation, misrepresentation, aided and abetted by external forces on a level not previously experienced in the ANC.
Yes.
Then you also do something like a reality check about the ANC. You say under this leadership, the ANC has disbanded all its leagues, which represent an essential aspect of its ongoing existence.
Yes.
The organization finds itself in the intensive care unit, who are unable to honor basic employment contracts with staff and workers, and were nonchalant about it, even arrogant in our failure to care, unquote. Why has it taken so long before someone at your level could raise that issue?
I don't know. I suppose, you know, I would have been jolted by something that was happening for me to say that. So it's not an everyday occurrence that you say things, but it was a reflective mood that I was in, reflecting on where we are. And indeed, we've disbanded all the structures that are important to us. We disbanded the Women's League. And I don't know if we even had the constitutional right to do that. Women have a right to come together. When the women's organization was joined the ANC, they did it deliberately because they wanted to join forces with the ANC. They didn't do it to be subordinated to the ANC. They came in their own right under Charlotte Matreke, but now we seem to be a junior partner to a male-dominated ANC. They had no right to do that. I believe they had no right. I'm convinced they had no right. We disbanded the Youth League. Perhaps the Youth League might from time to time need guidance from the ANC. It's not the first time that we have interfered in the running of the Youth League. And perhaps there is merit in that. I mean, right now, I'm not even sure we have the Veterans League. I'm not sure what other league we have that is working and functional. And if we looked at what we have put aside, which supported the institution of the ANC, we've lost a great deal. It is completely out of sync with what the ANC stands for. Every league in the organization is as important as any other, and it is an essential component of the whole. So we've lost almost like you walking on one leg when you actually have the capacity to walk on two legs. I could go on and on, losing one arm and using the other. These are put in place because they serve a particular purpose for particular sectors of society which belong to the ANC.
Yeah, let me put it this way. The former president, Nelson Mandela, in his last speech at the conference, pointed out that there is a resistance within the beneficiaries of apartheid. And they seem to have a view that sometime in the future, they might reverse and regain the control.
Yeah.
Could it be, one, that the ANC might has already outlived its purpose? Or could it be that the ANC has been sleeping when those elements that Madiba was concerned about have actually infiltrated the movement to reverse everything that the movement stands for?
Well, this is when I regret having been moved from intelligence, because one of the most important things about intelligence is to ensure that the character and the value systems of any organization that becomes a government are sustained. We would have been able to detect the growing impact of capital in the running of the organization, in the running of government, and in the lives of ordinary people that might have been coming in from outside or may have been in the organization itself. And I believe that is the way that capital works. capital works to erode whatever it finds there so that it can instill itself and be the foundation of anything that that existed before. Obviously, we didn't exist very well. Our own ideology and that of capital were completely incompatible. But we tried to make sure that we can live together because there was a need for us to live together. But capital has an advantage over us in that they provide those who do not have the necessary backbone with the kind of lifestyle and sustenance that maybe they may have been dreaming of all their lives, and eroding the culture and the value systems and the ethics of the ANC. I'm very worried about the effect, the impact of money on our society, because it has become almost like, normal. And we have not found a way of doing something about ensuring that that is stopped. I hope that we find a way of pushing back the impact of money, especially in its influence over political decisions. I think that at some point I did make an example of my ideal kind of ensuring that we keep a tab on everybody and keep the impact of money as far away from political activity as possible, by saying Mozambique has a system of electing its politicians that is watertight. I have seen it, I've experienced it, I marvel at how they do it. There is no influence of money in the way that the Mozambicans choose their leadership. The organization that Frelimo that leads Mozambique is steadfast in making sure that it is at the top of preparing people to choose their leaders completely unfettered by any money or any other frills that come with what we are doing these days. And I'm hoping that in time, when we've sobered up, we will find a system that insulates the political processes for election from the impact of money.
Yeah, let me bring in the other contentious issue, but I'll preface my question differently. Whether the ANC likes it or not, there is a reality that the Phala matter has brought a dispute to the party and to the country.
Yes.
Almost every major news channel, whether it's a television or media outlets in print all over the world, are flabbergasted that you can have a president who would be linked to money that is not put in the bank. And that they also suggest that certain laws of this country may have been violated. That is something that is not said by South Africans, but is said by everybody. But for somehow, there's a sense that that which everybody understands is a debatable, almost like the ANC lives in another world. And this has given the rise to some people suggesting that the ANC can no longer claim to be a leader of society. How do you respond to those who are saying that the ANC has lost the plot? If something as obvious as this, that everybody sees to be a problem in this country, becomes a source of major debate.
Okay. I was shocked like everybody else when this was revealed, because when I was in intelligence, we had come across the phenomenon of the illicit outflows of money into a country and inflows of money. And we knew that this would affect the rand and the value of the rand. So we established institutions that would monitor money. And out of those institutions, we have the Financial Intelligence Center and various other laws and regulations to make sure that we can protect our currency and we can keep out foreign currency that is illegal in our country. So we laid the basis a long time ago in preparation that we would not ever experience something like Phala. But we have experienced Phala, and whether we like it or not, several laws have been broken. Several very important laws have been broken. I must say this about Comrade Cyril. I think his first instance was to say, let me walk away. It is the people around him, I believe, who were dependent on him and his patronage that said, but Mr. President, what about us? And we're sitting with a situation where a group of people are holding the whole country and its integrity at ransom. Mm-hmm. And how it happened is an example of just how you can erode the very essence of the integrity of any economy. Mm-hmm. And we should have allowed Comrade Cyril to resign, and we should have investigated the matter to make sure that it doesn't ever happen again. Instead, what we have done is gone on and covered up, and creating a situation which is completely untenable. I think the world around us, those parts of the world that have the right morality, we come from a revolutionary past that has a very strong base in morality.
Yeah,
that we should
just on them. Let me interrupt you by bringing something also that is obvious. That says, had Arthur Fraser not told us or revealed this, your comrade, President Cyril, would have gone around talking and pontificating around transparency and accountability.
Yes.
And I can understand people around him. Mm-hmm. But what is his own responsibility to this country? And secondly, and this is probably the question that I'm trying to ask, there are people who are saying he's a good man and he is better than the West, and therefore we must turn a blind eye to what is happening. How do you respond to that? Because there is almost a suggestion that the democracy must stop, or democratic process must be held hostage, because the rest that remain are the West and is better. How do you begin to engage that type of argument? Because it's a narrative that has suddenly been endorsed by people who in the past were champions of transparency, accountability, and anti-corruption.
Well, I don't know what a definition of a good man is, Professor Seepe. Perhaps you could help me. But I do know that the presidents that we have had, I have looked up to, because I've been part and parcel of their lives. I've been part and parcel of them being appointed into those positions. I did not expect that I would at this point be sitting here discussing Comrade Cyril with money stashed in Phala Phala, because that is not how I associate his position and his relationship with society. But putting him out there as being a good man, as though there are some who are not good men. Who are those who are not good men? We've taken time to have systems that choose the best of us. And all the presidents that we have had have been some of the best of us. And we have expected them to live exemplary lives. And we've expected them to stick to the morality of the ANC. Why Comrade Cyril should be picked out as a good man, as though Thabo is not a good man, as though Zuma is not a good man, as though Mandela is not a good man. They're all good men. All of us would have wanted a good man or a good woman. A good woman actually would have been much better. But nonetheless, it's a different matter. Well, yes, a good woman would have been much better at some time, because I think that women have in them a kind of sensitivity of what is right and what is wrong, which is why they're able to raise children and bring them up as good citizens. But coming back to Comrade Cyril, I think that yes, if Arthur Fraser had not indicated that there was some money, he would not have revealed it. That's a bottom line, and that is where I think we should judge him.
Yeah. Well, there's also an issue that the panel that has been set up by Parliament also raised.
Yes.
The involvement of a president of Namibia in a private matter that involves the president of this country. Mm-hmm. The panel has suggested that is sufficient to say he has abused his office as head of state, because we don't expect a president of another country, and that president had to account his own parliament about the private matter of the president of this country.
Yeah.
What part of that does the ANC not see as a violation of office of the president?
No, I think the ANC is very clear about, and society is very clear about what has happened. But there is a very active agenda to try and protect and cover up and try and cover up is a word that I'm looking for. Cover up for what has happened. What has happened is irregular. It is blatant. It is wrong in the most extreme. It happens at a time when our workers in Luthuli House are not paid for 7 months, and there is money stashed away, which could easily have been borrowed if it wasn't his, to offset the disadvantage that we're experiencing in our political. I could go on and on. The people out there who's starving, and there is money in a couch. It is completely unacceptable. We were expecting that Comrade Cyril would be brave enough to say, look, this is what happened. It didn't happen. It was prompted all along by what came out of Arthur Fraser. Now you ask about our next door neighbor. I know our next door neighbor personally as a president with very high moral standards. And I believe very deeply that he would not have known the truth behind the story. He would have been asked to help to find people who had stolen money, which would not have been explained to him from a president's house, and that is a breach of security in terms of the level that he occupies, and that these people and that people had been sent to him to ask him to help find these people so that they come back to account. I don't think he knew the story. Yeah. If he knew the story, I can vouch on the fact that he would not have given his assistance from what I know of him.
Yeah. What we know, Minister, irrespective of the ANC's postures, the Phala story is not going to go away. The ANC can duck and dive, as the president has actually done. But you can rest assured that for the next coming 5 years, it's going to be something that people are going to talk about. But I want to bring something here, which will also, before you respond to what happened in Parliament yesterday, I want you, how do you balance something called the interest of the party, oath of office, and the dictates of one's conscience? Because it's something the Constitutional Court talks about the members of parliament when they're appointed and elected by the people, they become a representative of the people. And that's why parliament is how it is seen. And then you also have a dictates of the party that talks about party interest. And as a minister and as a member of parliament, how do you balance that? Because normally I would argue that there shouldn't be really, if you are engaged in a revolutionary struggle, the people come first, not the party first. So I would have thought that there'll be synergy around that. But just take us through your understanding as a person who is in a hot seat as a member of parliament.
Well, yeah, I am a member of parliament, and I think that there is need to ensure that there is a school of government to which every parliamentarian is required to go through. Most advanced countries have that, where we would indicate what level of morality we expect of everybody in parliament. But parliament is the last place we should be talking about. What we should be talking about is, how did we have this happening? How did we have this happening? Why are the law enforcement processes so slow in dealing with this matter? What has happened to the conscience of the country? I don't see the uproar that I saw on the issue of Ngandla. You and I worked on when you were still in public service and administration on the matter of Ngandla. And the hype around Ngandla was almost like out of this world, that something out of this world had happened. And here we have something out of this world happening, and the hype is not at the same level. because I suppose there are people that are beholden to the president and feel that they are protected by him, whereas by the time that Comrade Zuma's Nkandla story came out, he was possibly on his way out. I think that we need, as the ANC, to look at our own integrity, examine what level of integrity is required of a member of parliament, have checks and balances so that we can retain some level of trust from our people, a level of, respect, and all of those things that are necessary to uphold the institution of parliament, not for ourselves, but for the future.
Yeah, tell me, just to cut through that, is something called a conscience. Does it matter in the ANC? Suppose a member of the ANC stands up in parliament saying, my conscience and well-meaning and dictated by what I think our people, I mean, this is an honest posture.
Yeah.
If a person does that, how is that person protected? Because there's a sense that people do not take positions because some who have power have the tendency to use that power to deal with people who hold a different view. And yet you're talking about the ANC that people call a broad church with multiple perspectives, and especially on issues that have to do with morality.
Yeah. Well, we learn as we go along, and we try to ensure that we can keep some kind of cohesion within the ANC. But we have had people who have had the courage to stand up and say, I will not tolerate this. One of them is a member of parliament called Mervyn Dirks, who felt that the president needed to come and account to parliament about some irregularity in his office. And before he could, bat his eyelids, he had already been thrown out of parliament. So I think that we need a stronger integrity committee, one that operates on a daily basis in our lives, not an integrity committee that we go to only when we have a problem. I wrote an article here about the judiciary, and it caused such a stir. I was shocked because here I was expressing myself, and the outrage from the ANC was insane. It is not the same outrage that they're showing towards Phala Phala. That shocks me.
Actually, what is interesting is that the attack on the Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice and Judge Masipa, has been going on without anybody saying they need to be defended. So you can see the hypocrisy and even the hypocrisy of the so-called foundations that we see.
Yeah.
And the issue that I probably must deal with is what happened yesterday in Parliament. The issue that when the moment came for voting, what it is alleged, because I was not watching television, that you walked away. Okay. And some people present that as not walking the talk. Can you explain to us that before we go to something else?
This starts off with us discussing the matter of Phala Phala and the report we got from the panel that had been put together by Parliament. And we discuss it in the NEC. And in the NEC, both Nkosazana, Zweli, and myself were aggrieved about the way that the chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, was dealing with the matter. It became quite clear to us that his sole purpose was to protect Cyril, President Cyril, at all costs. So he then indicates to us that there are 26 people in the queue because we were deciding whether or not what to do about the report that had come in. And of course, it would land up in Parliament, but we ourselves were engaging with it. And we were very adamant that we should be given an opportunity to actually engage with the document. And when it gets to Parliament, we should make sure that it is a free vote, unfettered by anybody. Because it was quite clear from the discussion that there was an attempt to try to cushion the impact that that report would have. So we were standing in the queue in the NEC wanting to give our own views about the matter. And the matter was that the report would go to Parliament, which was natural, and that there would be an open vote, and that there would be a vote determined by the ANC. You would vote in line with the party. We were beside ourselves in shock. We stood up to object to this. The chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, did not recognize us. We were completely outraged at the decision, which was manufactured, discussed outside of the NEC, and imposed on us for a particular reason. Never in the life of this country have we ever voted in line with a party line without the secret, the protection of a secret vote. Over and above that, we're informed that anybody who does not toe the party line will be thrown out of a job. Now, that is reckless beyond measure. Nobody owns the ANC and nobody has the right to take decisions like that. But we were shut out of discussing this matter deliberately. In fact, it got so heated, we were very worried about the exchanges that happened between Zweli Mkhize and Gwede Mantashe. Yesterday, we went to Parliament, and I took the opportunity to address caucus to say the impression that is being given by Comrade Gwede to them that all is normal is not true. I was howled down. I could not continue. But I had stood up to say what is put across as having been a consensus in our meetings is not true. We were vigorously opposed to the way that the matter was being managed, and it was being managed to have a particular outcome. So after being held down in caucus, I went to the chamber and sat in the chamber. Then I get a message to say, look, you and Zweli, I think it's floating around. You and Zweli are being targeted. We suggest that you not vote. So I go out to go and check what this message is about. By the time I come back, the doors have been closed. I think, okay, either way, it doesn't matter. But the point that I'm putting across is that Parliament was held by the scruff of the neck to vote the way that it voted, at least not Parliament, the ANC, and it is wrong. Over and above that, you put a threat that you're going to lose your job over something that has nothing to do with their own integrity. This is something that the president should be responding to. But you say to people who have been serving the ANC honestly for a very long time, if you don't vote in this particular way, we're going to kick you out of a job. That is dictatorship of the worst kind. And if I didn't even go to vote, I don't regret it. I will not support anything that is dictatorial.
So are you saying, Minister, if the doors were not closed, you would have voted with Nkosazana Zuma? That is, well, you would have agreed with the opposition that the matter should be tabled and the Parliament should continue with the process.
I would have done the same thing which I did earlier on when I was held down by the whole of caucus, because I feel very strongly about this matter. I've grown up in the ANC. I have never seen this kind of thing happening, and a cover up and a threat over people's jobs being taken away. It is a disgrace.
How do we then protect those members who, out of the love for this country or their conscience, have decided to say, my conscience and the oath of office I've taken, or the oath that I took to serve as an MP, dictated this way? How do you protect those if they are disciplined? And even then the question was asked, who is going to discipline in 2 days' time? The current structure of the NEC would have no authority, but the branches are going to take over. But there is a way, because I had one of your members saying those who did not vote according to the party line will be dealt with through the structures. And I wondered, what structures are we talking about?
I don't know. I think the person who was responding to that might have better details than myself. What I do know was that there was a threat of expulsion from the ANC if you did not vote. Number one, I think it is very unethical to want people to disclose their vote. Their vote is secret, in the same way as when you go to voting station, it is legislated so. But however, Parliament is a different structure, and parties can indicate what they want to have as a vote cast in their name. But the threats that were there, that you're going to lose your job, I think it is going way overboard, and I'm very glad we have a conference coming. We will not have a leadership that threatens people to go in a particular direction, completely out of sync with what we are talking about, on a matter that has no integrity in it. That Phala issue is the worst thing that's happened to this government, is the worst thing that's happened to this democracy, insofar as morality is concerned. And here we are being told that we've got to protect that. It is ridiculous.
Yeah. Minister, I've got two more questions. One is the one that you sort of touched on, is the abuse of state organs by those in control. You indicate, or we've seen the law enforcement agencies that in some cases have been very active. I mean, if you take the case of somebody like Kalini House being arrested and charged for what you may call a misdemeanor, failure to comply with the COVID regulation. Then you have issues that involves or suggestion of kidnapping, torture, bribery, plus like you indicate, that the laws of this country have been broken, including the fact that you have a president who says, I'm a farmer, and these are the money that was there is proceeds from sale. And the Constitution expects a president to be seized with state matters as opposed to others. I mean, this is a clear cut. This does not even require investigation. But somehow the ANC does not seem to understand it, and somehow the ANC does not seem to be overly concerned about the lack of speed. Could it be that, as Julius Malema indicated, that for as long as you have a president, all those people who he has appointed are unlikely to act against him?
Well, that's the unfortunate situation. I think I agree with Julius Malema. I was going to add to what I was saying a little earlier on, and you were saying that if I'd come in, would I have stood up and said and voted in favor of the document? I've read the document. I think it's a fantastic document. Whatever else they may say about it, it is not a conclusive document. It is a document that is intended to say you may go ahead and impeach. And all of those who are attacking it are attacking it on technicalities that do not apply on the issues that we're talking about. We as members of parliament want to know, is this an impeachable offense? And if it is an impeachable offense, we would have wanted to go ahead and impeach. And we would have wanted the president to do the right thing, allow himself to be impeached and make sure that he gives full disclosure. I want to tell you a story that I found very interesting, Professor. You know, when Bill Clinton was impeached in the United States, and he really was under a tremendous pressure, the one person that he thought would help him out of this was Nelson Mandela. He called him and said, look, I'm going through this, and I think I'm being unfairly treated. Mandela said, you know what? Just submit to your peers and leave. It will not hurt you. You will only gain in stature. So go and face the impeachment and do the best you can and tell the truth always. Bill Clinton has not recovered from that because it helped him see the other side of life. Yeah. That side of life which is not selfish, that side of life which thinks about other people, that side of life which is wholly, innocent, that side of life which all of us should have a part of. And I would have expected that at some point the president would say, look, I will not allow my party to go through this hell and the processes that we've had to go through and all the allegations that have been thrown around since then. He would easily have said, look, give me time to look at this and I will allow myself to be impeached. The whole process that we're going through is just a waste of our taxpayers' money. This is an impeachable offense, and we should have gone ahead with it. That is my view.
Yeah, just to be sure, the way it is understood, and the opposition has made that very clear. They say the president has consistently said he's innocent, and this process was going to allow him an opportunity to be vindicated or be proven otherwise.
Yes.
Now, the interesting thing is that that seems to have been lost to the notion of people thinking that this is an expression of guilt, rather than simply to say, if he has nothing to fear, why does the ANC go through this? And this is how the ANC is seen. But before you can answer that, I want you to combine it with the fact that in less than 2 years, the ANC will be going to the polls, and effectively it needs to get its house in order. What are the few things that you think the ANC can do now, given this behavior? And of course, the interesting thing is, I say, the hypocrisy of the so-called mainstream media, the so-called foundations, the groups that used to jump and stand on the rooftops talking about the right to know. They've suddenly disappeared when it comes to the matter of Palapala. Somehow there's something that says that we have no right to know. But for me, this seems to be, they are acting in line with what the ANC says, that the public in South Africa should not know what happened in Palapala. But okay, go ahead.
No, Professor Seepe, you and I have worked on Jacob Zuma's cases. And we've gone through every law that he might have broken, every requirement of a president, and etc. I wish that President Cyril Ramaphosa, on realizing that what he has done was a gross violation of many laws, would have would have responded to his instinct and stepped aside. It would have spared us all this drama that we have had. It would have saved the integrity of the ANC. Now, I had indicated in an interview that I had with City Press that I believe that the president should step down, because in the absence of the president, we are able to deal with this matter and rebuild the trust that the people have in the ANC. This matter is not just about himself. It is about how it is tarnishing the ANC, which, as you have indicated, is going into elections in 2 years' time. I think that there is a selfish streak, which is particularly male, that is running through the ANC. The people who are protecting the president are not protecting the president for the president's sake. They're protecting the president because they want to be in the place where they are right now. They're protecting themselves. And for as long as we have this kind of culture in the ANC, we are doomed. There ought to be people who are able to tell the president the truth and tell the emperor that he is naked. Those people are not in abundance in the ANC. And when you do that, you are seen to be a rebel. When you do that, you're seen to be all sorts of allegations that would have been thrown. I have been called a princess and etc., etc. I wouldn't have minded being born a princess. I just wasn't born a princess. I'm not a princess. I'm just a revolutionary that wants to make sure that that which so many people died for remains intact for our children. It is dying in our hands, and I'm very worried about that.
With that, Minister, thank you for making the time, and also think about what former President Mtlante and Deputy President, who had said that maybe what the ANC might need to do is to lose elections, and it could sober up. And I know that people like yourself would hold a different view, but you have a challenge right now to make sure that the ANC restores itself and the confidence that it has lost from the people. But you have expressed yourself very strongly on this matter, and I want to thank you and wish you luck in the deliberations in the conference in the next coming 2 days. Thank you very much, Minister, for making the time.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.